Omega T.
Our entire lives, we've been surrounded by art, movies, music, and other forms of entertainment that are mostly created by people who have unchecked pathologies of the mind. The reason they're allowed to become so prolific and pushed to the public is because the powers that be understand art. They understand its true purpose, which is to inspire humanity to strive for good and to participate in the divine energies and the will of God. Now, some of you liberals might get your panties in a bunch about me suggesting the notion of objective good or any kind of transcendent existence being a reality in the world. If that's the case, there's the door. Art has been mangled and malformed as an avenue of life and reduced to a playground for mentally ill people to spread their pathologies to the general public. I believe the artist in ancient society, and even maybe up to the Renaissance, had an unspoken promise with the societies that bore them, and that was to guide the person engaging with the art closer to heaven. This is a heavy and magnanimous burden indeed, and it's one that the modern artist doesn't seem to care about. In modern society, we get a banana taped to a wall and some yapping about interpretation. We get ugly characters we're told to make believe are beautiful, and we get Brazilian cabals dictating what should and shouldn't be made, tainting the products they allow into the public eye with black magic. What is art in the modern day but a packaged product, something to be consumed, not engaged with, forgotten, and not absorbed? The advent of art as self-expression, I think, comes downstream from Carl Jung and other psychoanalysts using similar methods. Carl Jung advocated that the use of drawing, particularly mandalas, could be used as a tool for understanding the unconscious mind. He believed that by drawing mandalas, individuals could gain insight into their unconscious thoughts and emotions. Mandalas in Buddhism are, from what I understand, the representation of the soul in the corporeal world. I think this is vital to the heart of creation, as what we see here is the connection to the transcendent being expressed in an ancient practice dating back thousands of years. The unconscious, as Jung would call it, or the soul, as I would call it, is the part of the human being that is in direct connection with the divine energies. This is where art does its work, and the elites are very, very aware of this. This idea of mandala drawing was then taken and developed by Jung's contemporaries and people later inspired by him, whose addendums to the idea coalesced into the practice of art therapy, in which people that struggle to articulate themselves use art as a method of communication between other people and between their own unconscious mind. I think the ramifications of this in the arts manifested in the self-expressionist philosophy, in which art is created for the enjoyment of and the benefit of primarily the self, and not humanity or your community or your family. This attitude is now ingrained into the arts, and it's taken as a given, and most people would tell you that's what art has always been. I think this is a extremely naive and selfish way of looking at creation, and I would go so far as to even say childlike. I remember as a child, when I would play superheroes with my friends or my cousins, I would occasionally end up as the villain. Now, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the game Superheroes, but spoiler alert, the villain always loses. When it came anyone's turn to be the group villain, they would inevitably be cornered by the heroes, and on the brink of defeat, lo and behold, would manage to pull out some new super weapon, superpower, or super bullshit that would push the game to continue on, even when it would have been a lot more cathartic and satisfying for everyone else if the villain just died there and we started a new game. Alas, I was a little shit, and the cycle would continue until everyone eventually got tired of my BS, until the sun went down, or until I was allowed to be the hero. The modern entertainment industry encourages and subsidizes this attitude, and if you have been allowed to succeed or rise through the traditional avenues, the content you produce, whether you understand it or not, is being used as propaganda by the ruling class. The world we live in is plagued by evil and by people who deny its very existence. In a time like this, people who go the way of the world are the best propaganda makers, because they don't even know they're making propaganda. They can perpetuate the rulers' crooked deceptions through way of their so-called art, through their self-expression, and the world will be none the wiser. And yes, there is still good art, amazing art, even transcendent art being created, albeit very little. And yes, it's not every director, it's not every writer, and it's not every actor, and it's not every producer, just the Jew. But it doesn't have to be. It just has to be enough. One Piece is an anime-manga franchise you may have heard about from its incessantly insufferable fan base. One Piece fans often state that Oda has the greatest imagination of any mangaka, that no one else could come up with the ideas that he does. Most of them have negative IQs because their brains are being deprived of the fluids they're using to glaze this man. I think this shines a bigger problem on how people view art, and how people view artists as well. Because everybody has an imagination, and if your benchmark for creativity is how fucked up can I make a character look, I would bet you my left nutsack that there are average people out there that could come up with character designs 10 times more fucked up than the worst looking One Piece character. But they're sitting on trains, they're heading to office blocks, they're filling in spreadsheets, paving roofs, stacking shelves, and cleaning toilets. You are a creative by virtue of existing as a human being, but very few people should actually go on to pursue an artistic career. If you are an artist that has managed to make anything even semi-good, you're not special or talented, but you are gifted in the truest sense of the word, whether by your upbringing, by your temperament, by divine intervention. Something about the hue of your soul has allowed you a deeper connection to the transcendent, a more potent creative ability, and you should look at it as a gift and only as a gift. And you should recognize that art isn't just the wild splattering of your primal imagination onto a blank canvas. It's not the untampered release of all your best and brightest and deepest and darkest ideas. You should view art not as something that comes from us, but something that is given to us. It's something that we should feel privileged at being allowed to participate in. Art is the control of the primordial fire at the center of your being. It is the forging of it into a weapon that can challenge the deceived humanity, a weapon that can channel your divine connection to slowly change the world. And so every letter typed, every brush and pen stroke is a foray into the transcendent that should be treated not only with the immediate and distinctly physical care that most of the arts require, but with the spiritual benevolence that is brushed over by all aspects of humanity. And so if you're using art as therapy and as self-expression, keep that shit to yourself, bro. I'm not trying to see your intrusive thoughts. But if you have to release your creations into the world, if you feel there's something almost supernatural pushing you to release your art, if the thought of you doing something else with your life brings you pain, I believe you were probably meant for it. And you shouldn't use art as a means to understand yourself, but use art as a means to truly understand humanity on the most profound and fundamental levels, and maybe even gain a little understanding of reality in the process.